Is Visual Studio holding you back from success? Are you one of those developers who just really want to make sure that you are being the most effective at your job and make sure you're putting yourself in position for success, and you don't want to be held back? And is Visual Studio doing that? I got 3 things I want to cover in this video, so that I want to make sure you guys have the right information to make sure you're on the right path to be a successful developer and using the top IDE tools that's going to allow you to do that. And we'll talk more details about Visual Studio. So let's get into the details and let me explain. So let's talk about Visual Studio in detail here, because it's one of the more popular IDEs. It's sponsored by Microsoft. Everybody's pushing, depending on what projects you're using. Visual Studio is one of those things that you can leverage. Well, Visual Studio got a lot of perspectives as well that I wanted to cover, just to kind of make sure you're on the same page. They have premium options and they have free options, and they have open options that is in between as well. So that's what makes it a great option. Is it the best option for every single scenario? Probably not, depending on your use case, what type of developer you are, and what kind of competitors are working in those particular niches. We'll talk about this later on in the video, but it really comes down to ecosystem and what other developers and what other clients are using for IDEs as well, because you want to be standardized. You want to make sure you're using the same extensions, everybody using the same tools, so that you can position yourself for success. I know there's no requirement of this, but we're talking standardization, making sure documentation and everything reflects the same tools, so that everybody can make sure, there's no differences in approach when it comes to deploying software to in a production environment for a particular client. So Visual Studio give you a lot of options when it comes to that, for the enterprise side, for the open source side, for the hobbyist side, a lot of different scenarios there. So if you're using Visual Studio today, I would continue to use it unless you have a specific reason not to, or there's an IDE out there that'll do things that Visual Studio won't do. I can tell you one thing: if you're in the Microsoft ecosystem, the chances of you using anything outside of Visual Studio is probably going to be slim at this point, unless you are working with a very unique, specific technology that's going to allow you to get an upper hand using a specific IDE. And again, that may be a use case for you specifically, but for the most of us, if you use Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio Professional, is not going to hold you back. So what I want you guys to do is comment below on the IDEs that you use. Is Visual Studio working for you? If so, put it in the details. If not, put it in the details or the comment section as well, and have a conversation. I wanted to really start to interact with you guys a lot more, and to kind of figure out ways that we can make sure all of us use the most effective tool, put us in a position to win. So let's start a conversation. All right, guys, let's talk about other alternatives outside of Visual Studio. I'm not going to name them by name on this video, actually. I'm going to get you guys to go to Google and type in top IDEs and see what comes up specifically for you. I always say, as long as you're in the top 3, you're good to go. As long as you do your industry research just to see what other developers use, what your client use, and making sure you use those to make your decision, then you are in the right place. What I don't want you to do is not do any of that. Make a decision. I am dead set on this particular IDE. I don't care what the client wants. I don't care what my team uses. I'm going to use this, and I'm not going to take anything else in consideration. That's what's going to get you in trouble. No, regardless of what IDE you use, at some point, other factors come into play outside of, hey, I just like this better than the other. And that's the mindset I want you guys to get away from if you are there. Don't be loyal to a technology. I always talk about this in my 7-step guide. It's not your job to be loyal to a technology in an enterprise world. If you're doing this on your personal time for a hobby, go right ahead. But we're talking about enterprise development. ERP development. A lot of your personal biases or preferences do not come into play here. This is the number one thing that a lot of developers get wrong, and it end up tripping them up at the end of the day, because it's not what you need, it's about what the company needs and the resources, and really positioning them for success developing software. So is standardizing the IDE across all the developers is one of the objectives that they want to do? You got to fall in line. If not, you're going to be looking for another job. So that's why I tell you guys, the best tool may not necessarily be the best tool for that particular client. Just know what the client uses. Try to use that. See if there's some flexibility. If there's some flexibility, go right ahead, and then kind of go from there. Don't want to belabor this point too much. We talk about this in step number 4 of our 7-step guide. We get into the latest and greatest technology and what the clients need. So go ahead, links below for that free 7-step guide. And we also go into massive details about this in our 90-day developer Launchpad, because a lot of you guys get tripped up on your journey as an aspiring developer or unhappy developer. So if you want those level of details, we got good rates on that 90-day developer course. Links below to both, and you get some good rates on that 90-day developer course. So if you haven't already, let's go ahead and enroll in that and kind of get you guys started, because that's what's going to move the needle for you. Not necessarily the tool itself, is how you leverage the tool. So I really want you guys to emphasize that and come up with a strategy that's going to allow you to push out bigger and better projects. So if you haven't already, go ahead and check out the goodies in the description box, guys. At the end of the day, guys, if the IDE is doing this job and you're able to create projects that the client wants, then you got a great working solution. Don't get caught up into what's the best, but you need to focus on what tool gets the job done within the business requirements, within the client's requirements, within the industry requirements. You keep hearing me say that word, requirements. What is required for you to get that client job done? And that's the most important thing. And a lot of us technical folks start to look at things way beyond the requirements and start to make decisions outside the requirements, and then not necessarily taking the requirements into consideration when it comes to the tools you prefer to use. That's what's going to get you in trouble. I talk about this all the time in corporate politics and the corporate way of doing things. Compliance beats skill when they can get skills, lower skills, that can actually get the job done. In another word, hey, you can be the best developer in the world at your skill set, but the requirement for the company is down here. They will choose a lower developer over you if you're not compliant. So keep that in mind, guys. Don't get caught up into all the great tools. Yes, Visual Studio is a great tool. Yes, there got a lot of open source, great IDEs out there that's way better than Visual Studio. But let's just see what works and just focus on the projects and really put yourself in a position to be a problem solver, regardless of what tools. Obviously, you want to niche down to a specific tool so that you don't have to use several different options. You want a few options in your tool belt, but you don't want the same redundant option that's going to really bring confusion to your toolkit and actually cause you to start to question things, slow you down and all that stuff, guys. So if you haven't already, tell me about your experience with IDEs. What's the best one? What's the worst? What you're struggling with? Comment below in the comment. Let's start a conversation. If you haven't already, go check out my goodies in the description box. I have a 7-step guide down there, and I also have my 90-day developer Launchpad course. We got good rates, guys. Go ahead and enroll so that we can get you started, so that we can make sure you're using the best tool that's going to progress your career and put you in a position to success. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe to all the content to make sure that you keep up to date with what we're doing over here at DigiLink Solutions. So go ahead and do that. I'll see you guys in the next video.